Aloha and welcome to the Awakening to the Magic of the Menstrual Cycle Summit. Welcome if this is your first time. Welcome back if you are joining us again. Today I have the lovely Miss Hannah Gwawr.
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 Yeah.
Yes. What did you say that was? Welsh?
It's Welsh and it means dawn.
Dawn. Beautiful. Thank you for helping me out with that pronunciation. I'm just going to read your bio for anybody that isn't familiar with you. So Hannah is a Shamanka initiate and serves the sacred Isle of Bridget. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bridget Anna. Yeah.
Also known as the British Isles. She also serves the sacred land of Mother Earth as an Indigenous woman in the West. Living closely to and communing with the spirits of the land, she works to regenerate culture and create new pathways back home to the sacredness of all life through the magic and deep sacredness of the feminine. One of these pathways is through a woman's menstrual cycle. Deeply working with this innate wisdom and reclaiming its connection to the sacred hoop, we begin to understand that its wisdom is essential to this time of change and to the maturity of ourselves and our culture, which will assist us to see that we need to respect and see Mother Earth as a living being. We as women harmonize throughout every month with her rites of passage. The inner world of a woman is reflected in the outer world of nature. Hannah is designer and creator of Changing Woman Mandala, a resource for women and girls, and is co-founder of Sacred Woman, sacredworld.org and womanbecoming.org, where she works closely with women and girls. Welcome, Hannah. I'm so excited to have you on and be connecting with you in this space. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me. It sounds beautiful.
Yes, and we can just thank the divine for leading us to each other.
Actually, yeah.
So I'd like to start off with just having you share a little bit about your journey and what brought you into doing this work.
Okay. Many women growing up in the West, I didn't have any concept for a long time. Probably into my 30s, I'm 46 now, about my menstrual cycle. I was quite anesthetized to it through the contraceptive pill, through trauma of not wanting to connect to myself as a woman because of the trauma women have faced in our Western culture, just by the nature of it. And I think, yeah, I started to heal in my late 20s quite profoundly with my shamanic training, and realized how there were these other ways of being that were so connected to Mother Earth. And then I read The Red Moon, I think it's by Miranda Gray, and she gave me the gift of seeing that how I felt as a child, because as a child, to get out of the adrenaline that I felt in the circumstances I was in, I would often go to the woods and sit and be in the woods. And I know that now that was me getting out of adrenaline, but it would also give me this deep communion and harmonizing with the forest and all of life. So when I had my shamanic training and discovered my inner shamanka, that was it. My path opened up of like being of service to that. And then I read Miranda Gray, and it was like, oh my gosh, when she talks about the archetypes and the seasons, I felt it really deeply. And that was a moment of like, I'd done womb healings before. I'd let go of trauma in my womb, shamanic womb work. But this was like a eureka moment of like, this is how I can really discover my womb, because I felt so connected to the outer world in every way, in the natural outer world of the forest. and the land. And it was like, oh, it's like something was taken from my eyes. And I do honor her with the resources that I've made, you know. And then obviously I've gone deeper into that with my everyday life and with studying the deeper aspect of myself as a woman, and harmonizing that with the outside world, and, you know, giving my blood to the land has obviously awakened more of that within myself. And then luckily I'd done this work before I had my children, so then it deepened with having two daughters by the time, you know, I'd already had them as babies, but the work got really deep before they've started bleeding. One of them's already bleeding and becoming a woman, and the other one's not far behind her. So then I felt this desire and this profound moment of like, I need to somehow create this so that young girls can understand this from the beginning, whether they want to desensitize to understand the mainstream culture. If you give it to them young enough, they will remember that one day when they need to return home to what is truth. So it's like really important work to pass on this wisdom to them. So it's a kind of brief outline.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm really grateful that you have been taking the initiative to offer it to the youth, because we're very easily impressionable when we're young, and I think that is the most powerful time to really deliver or begin delivering this type of information to the next generation, is when they're young, and it's very easy for them to absorb it, and for it to really settle in them deeply somewhere, and so they can carry it with them through the rest of their lives. So, and yeah, that's really
the beauty of harmonizing the work of the seasons, the inner seasons and the inner archetype with young girls, is that if you start from 8, when their hormones kick in, they're still, if they have a chance, and we do it in our workshops, they're out on the land, they're in nature, they're playing nature immersion games, they're hearing nature stories, and they're at one with the natural world still. So then they totally understand it when you bring it in, because they're not separate from it yet. Not, some children are, but the majority of them aren't. And then we do camps where women can bring their daughters. So it's perfect timing to do that for them, to gift them that. Yeah.
awesome. Oh my gosh. A camp sounds like a really good idea. That needs to be more widespread around the world. I don't have a daughter yet, but I would like to have one day, and that sounds like something I would just love to take my daughter to do. So, okay, I just wanted to rewind a little bit for anybody who's tuning in who doesn't know what the word shamanka means. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So for me, shamanka it comes from a path of dancing with the shadows. That's how I see it. I think when you feel the call to the path of shamanka or the shaman, but for me, it's the deepness of the feminine. It's often come from a lot of trauma in your life. They do say that the sign of a natural shaman is so many traumas before the age of 7. And I think with our culture, the Western culture, there's a lot of that. And that is one of the gifts of this time, is that people understand the sort of the deeper shadows of heightened awareness, because through trauma, your senses are honed into feeling and hearing other dimensions. That's one of the things, because you leave your body. It's some of the work that I've trained in is soul retrieval, where through deep trauma, a part of your soul will actually leave and be compartmentalized somewhere, so that you can actually carry on and function in the world you're in. It's a very ancient technique, and I recommend anybody read about it. It's a very valuable technique for this time that we're on now, to bring back. There's a technique with the drum, with the shamanic drum, where the shamanka will journey for the person, or the person often comes with them, to retrieve a part of them that wants to come home. And often that that person can feel there's something's coming to a head in their lives, and they can feel that they're not integrated, that they're not functioning, they're almost ghost-like, they're sort of in it really spaced out, they're not functioning as well as they could, and they're very stressed out, and that's often a sign that there's trauma that needs integrating. And one of the most beautiful ways of doing it is to actually do soul retrieval, because you can go and find that part of you, which is usually from your childhood, and gently bring her home to be fully integrated into your soul. And for me, that is the part of the Shamanka, is that through my childhood, I was always aware of other energies. Often they came in the form of fear or nightmares, because that's what I projected onto them. But I think it was because I was so out of my body, I had a real awareness of the other dimensions and the other helpers and beings out there. But with our culture, I turned it into, I didn't understand it. And then when you go out into the forest, you might have a heightened sense of the trees, because you're really aware of sounds. Like you can get shocked easily. I don't know if you've been in post-traumatic stress, but the slightest noise can make you jump. And it's like, if you take that post-traumatic stressed out being of yourself into the forest, then you can hear the whispering of the trees, you can hear the heightening, the birds sound really strong, and that's the path of the Shamanka, to bring that medicine back to the people, because you're able to go there once you've conquered your own inner, I don't want to call them demons, but your own inner shadows. Although they're always there, you can work with them. It's not like banishing them, but it's working with them to bring in good medicine. To heal myself, I found that path. I was attracted to shamanism because it's working with the animal helpers, it's working with the natural world, which I'd always felt safe in as a child, so it naturally appealed to me. There's many other aspects to Shamanka, but the basics is that a Shamanka will work with the forces of nature and dance with the shadow realm to bring healing for the people. So yeah.
Beautiful. So is Shamanka kind of like the female term for shaman?
Yeah, that's okay. How I trained at a women's school of shamanism called Shamanka with a woman called Eliana Harvey over here in Britain. She'd worked with many medicine teachers from different lineages, and it was for women, so it was really honing into how does the feminine work from that place, and developing on from that. I mean, I learned teachings from the Gwawr Indians, from the Native American tradition, some from the Celtic tradition, but what I feel like Shamanka's moved me into by claiming the feminine ways is that our wounds are Shamanka in their healed state, because month, all day, all throughout the month, we're embodying the outer world of nature. So yeah, it is the feminine. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I just wanted to say, I need to add that if I am a little bit distracted, it's because I have a little kitten in front of me that really wants to play with everything. So I'm trying to get him to just let me be present for this.
They always come in, don't they? The familiars, the allies at certain times. I find always the animals will come in if you have one. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, they're such little blessings. I'm really grateful to have them as companions on the planet. It's very rewarding and enriching to be walking with them on the planet and working with them. That was a really beautiful response. Thank you for that. I would love to ask you if you could touch a little bit on the different archetypes. And I even feel like just maybe even kind of explaining exactly what archetype means for anyone who is really unfamiliar with that. I'm still kind of new to it. I know what the word means, but I haven't really studied very much about them when it comes to the cycles of being a woman, but I am feeling more and more called to that, because I think that is one of the most powerful and organic ways for us as women and human beings to learn about ourselves. So I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Okay, so archetypes, I mean, I haven't even read what archetype means, but from my,
What it
and
means
from
from you.
working, yeah, from me, and from working in the goddess community here in Glastonbury, and in England, here in Glastonbury, there's a place called Avalon. There's actually a goddess temple, and they work a lot with archetypes. So, like in terms of the feminine, like you have Kali. She is like a deity, an archetype that it's like the human condition needs, as far as I can see, a representative, something that represents an energy. Like so Kali represents the destructive force of the feminine. So she's become an archetype. So it's something that we can relate to, like in picture form, because she's been drawn, but also in describing her. And she becomes a symbol for that. That's what I feel an archetype is. And like women are talking about, we need new archetypes for this woman that's emerging into the 21st century. So it's like for me, I'm kind of pulling through a form for a feminine energy, for an explanation of a part of us that's come from our inner world, from our soul, from our service as the feminine on Mother Earth. It's like we need to package it into this, which I think is an archetype, and then you can give your love to it, you can give your energy to it, and it builds it up because you can focus your intention and your prayers onto that archetype. So it's useful for doing medicine work because you can focus your energy in that direction. So the menstrual cycle, you know, we have the maiden archetype who is just post-bleeding. So they brought her archetype in to represent like after the bleeding time when we're in our cage, when we're resting, and that archetype is the crone, but I'll go around the wheel, to the grandmother. After you've been bleeding, you get a new beginning, don't you? A new surge of energy that starts to come up to be able to start gifting into the outer world again once you come out of your bleed and your tiredness and your rest. And so that obviously is like the springtime, and in our lives, our younger selves represent that, the maiden years when we are, you know, new to the world, full of wonderment and excitement and a fresh energy for the earth, especially if we've not been traumatized, like the gifts a young woman can bring, like she's full of life force and exuberance and just discovering herself and her sexual energy, and but she's very innocent with it, like it's a whole new learning. So like we've kind of given that archetype to our younger self. She's known as the maiden. So within our cycles, that time when we come out of our bleed, when the energy is returning to us again, she, you know, Miranda Gray, and I think it might, I don't know where she got the work from, I mean she maybe channeled it, but it's like it is the maiden, isn't it? It's like that life force returning, but it's still so innocent. We're not to take too much action from that place. We're just supposed to look again at the outer world with sort of new eyes of like, okay, you know, like my energy is going to return to me. This is in an ideal world, you know, in the patriarchal culture, it can be really hard to work with these archetypes, but this is the healing, the awakening of the magic of the menstrual cycle, like your summit says, is like, these are the gifts to allow this cycle. So then we move on to the mother, which is ovulation. So we've projected the mother energy onto her, but you can feel why, because as the maiden matures and your eggs released, you get this surge of giving, loving, love. Like, you know, you just want to bring love to you and you want to serve love. And there's a lot of energy for you to be really productive, even if you're not sexually active. Like you can use it to really heal yourself or to help others, because especially if you've rested during your bleed, this time is so productive.
Yeah.
And the mother in your life is that, you know, she's got so much she can give. It's like the summertime, so much life force energy to empower you to do the work that you need to do, you know. And then
Yeah.
we move on to the autumn. Yeah. Do you want to say anything, or shall I keep moving around the wheel?
Keep moving around the wheel.
Okay, so then the mother energy is ovulation. We're going into from out of the summer, we have to start letting go of ovulation, of being able to give, and we go into the autumn woman. So this is when we start to get a bit gnarly and a bit upset about having to keep going as the mother archetype, because our energy is starting to wane, and just like the leaves on the trees, it's time to start nourishing ourselves from a deeper place again. Sorry, I'm coughing. And then stop giving out so much into the outer world, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, should I have to drink a water? And then after the autumn woman, we go into the crone, the grandmother, who needs to dream and rest for the winter time. So yeah, she's a powerful archetype of the old grandmother to be able to help us to let go and rest and not mind about the outer world and what's happening in it, because we need to go into her cave and rest and dream. Sorry.
It's okay. Did you want to grab yourself some water?
I think I need to go and get a drink of water. Yeah. Shall we
Yeah, go
pause
ahead.
it? Are you going to pause it?
You just grab some water. Okay, so we took a short break for water and a change of scenery to see if we could get a better connection, and I think that actually helped. So we're back. And back to the wheel. We were talking about
I think moved from autumn woman, which I just want to say, when I started coughing then, this is how connected we are. I'm going into autumn woman in my life, and at the moment it's being really quite an emotional journey for me to allow myself to become that archetype, which is the menopause, in my family. And I've had a lot of heart stuff with it, so I think it was coming out of my throat chakra, so I just wanted to put that in.
Yes.
So after you become being autumn woman, which is post bleeding, so PMS, it's when most women have issues because they have to let go of being the mother, and the mother is the most valued in our culture, as well as the maiden. And the older woman, who is autumn woman, is the creatrix, the one who's able to find her fierceness, find her boundaries, to be able to bring back the energy for herself, and to find her real medicine of who she really is. I call her deepening woman as well. And then after her, because she needs to make big change to be able to rest and dream during the bleeding. So after you've been autumn woman and made the changes that you need to make around you and within you, to go into retreat basically, and to be still and quiet and to let the dreaming in. Because when we bleed, we're dreaming. That's why the archetype is grandmother crone. And the grandmother, because she is nearer the dreaming as she's going towards death. So that's like, it is death, like we're in the void, we're in rest, and we're not meant to do anything but dream. I know our culture doesn't support that. And then, you know, when we start to be reborn as the maiden, that's when we can start taking our energy back out into the outer world. But grandmother Corona is really about being with the dreaming. So yeah, that's kind of why you can see why the archetypes have been chosen for those particular parts of the cycle. It really helps to explain it.
Yeah. So in an ideal world, the intention of, like, what I'm understanding, the way that the menstrual cycle is really meant to be embodied and experienced, you basically rest and retreat and keep most of the inward for that dreaming time when you're bleeding, and that's when you can really be in close communion with the divine and receive the images and the inspiration and what's wanting to be birthed through you. That's where you receive it all. And when you like journey out of that and into ovulation, when you're in ovulation, that's where you have the energy to really start to like take action and allow it to be birthed through you and out into the physical world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. And
So we
I'm just,
have these seasons just like the outer world, like spring, summer, autumn, winter. So we can understand what's happening with Mother Earth. Like it's so important that we harmonize as people to the natural rhythms of life. Like we're so disconnected through our consumer culture that I really feel like when women claim that sacredness of their internal rhythm, they will be able to help their family and then their culture understand this need for, you know, the rhythms are there. We're part of that ecosystem. They're within us, even the masculine, of needing this cycle of life, death, life, you know, rest, rebirth, action. It's such an important way of being that we've lost. And that's why there's so much sickness in our culture, you know?
yes, that is basically the root of everything that's wrong with the world right now, is that disconnect with the natural rhythm and this weird artificial like continuous pace of moving forward and producing. It's that is the root of it all, is not being connected to the cycles. That's what's
Yeah.
causing mostly all of it.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you really start to like back up and like see the bigger picture, and you can actually narrow it down to one root, that is that basically every other imbalance on the planet stems from. And that makes it kind of not easier necessarily, but I guess easier to understand what's causing it and what we need to focus on to heal everything. It's just that one root, reconnecting with the cycles of nature within ourselves and with the natural world around us.
Yeah. I totally agree, because we're in a linear culture and that doesn't serve the feminine. It doesn't serve the masculine, but it really doesn't serve the feminine, because we are cyclical by nature and we have to reclaim that these times. It's so important to reclaim that for ourselves, for our mental health, emotional health,
Definitely.
yeah, spiritual health. The picture's
Yeah.
gone off.
I was thinking about what you said a little bit ago about how you used to go out to the forest and the trees to kind of like unplug and um, kind of like unwind from the adrenaline, as you said. And um, kind of like around the beginning of my own personal awakening, I was very called to the forest and the trees, and I basically rediscovered my connection with them. And the forest and the trees have provided me with some of the most potent medicine and therapy for me along my own path of healing and awakening and personal development. That and I just like intuitively started connecting with them and hugging them. And I remember I would jog around and kind of trot through the forest and go over to like one tree and the other one, almost like bounce off of them, in between them, would feel this love from them. And whenever I would hug them, I would close my eyes and have like this pillar of light moving through me and my heart and through the tree and down through Mother Earth, kind of like making a circuit of energy. And I just definitely feel that and love trees so much. Being in the forest, there's something so special about that space and sacred that I've not ever felt really anywhere else. Forest can provide.
Yeah, I feel the same. And I feel like we're being called to restore the land now. the trees are calling us home. And I am a tree sister. I'm part of the Tree Sisters charity, and I love their work because apart from reforesting the tropics, they're also into feminine-based leadership. And so a lot of my work, which includes the menstrual cycle from this place, is claiming ourselves as restorer species. So how can we move from consumer to restorer species? We need to, because the forests are disappearing still. You know, we haven't got our natural ecosystem for well-being. And I feel like it's vital that women reclaim this so that we can help the brothers to understand, so we can help the children to understand, so that we can restore life, the sacredness of life, you know. And the more we get in touch with that in our inner world and our womb space, the more it will have a knock-on effect so that people can claim it and then start regenerating the land. So we need to restore our culture to a healthy earth-based indigenous culture. I'm not talking about going back, because we can't go back, but we need to take the threads of this deep earth connection, that we are not separate from the land. We're not separate from forest. That's where we've come from. And take that into the future in whatever way that's needed, you know, like we need to do it. And the menstrual cycle is undeniably innate wisdom for that. And yeah, I feel it's essential. That's why I do this work, you know.
Definitely. Thank you for that. I would love it if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about the Tree Sisters organization, what they're doing and what they're about.
So Tree Sisters charity, it's a global charity. I don't know how many women there are. There's brothers as well, but it's mainly women. And Claire Dubois is the founder. She crashed her car into a tree. You can hear her story on YouTube. And the tree downloaded this charity to her, and she's actually done it. And so women can donate however much they feel. I donate £10 a month, and that money goes towards many projects around the green belt of Gaia, so the tropics, because that's the cooling system of Mother Earth, the forests that are around her middle. I mean, all forests are important, but the urgency is not to lose any of this temperate rainforest, that's the belt of Mother Earth, because she regulates the cooling and the balance of the planet. And so they've reforested places like Madagascar, and as well as reforesting, they bring healing back to the indigenous communities as well, because like I think it was the mangroves in Madagascar, once they started regenerating and replanting that, the fish stocks came back. So the local indigenous fishermen had a livelihood again because things were disappearing. And in Uganda, their land was turning to desert, but the women knew. They knew that it was because the rains had stopped, because the trees had gone. So they've helped them to regenerate the land there, and the rains are coming back. And there's many, many stories. I recommend going on and looking. But apart from the actual physical work of restoring the tropics, they also have created a feminine university. So it's got lots of work for women on there. Amazing speakers, scientist women, indigenous women. And it's all helping us to claim our leadership roles as the feminine, and that's what's needed on the planet now. And it's not exclusive of men. You know, I really don't like it when people jump on that bandwagon. It's just allowing women to claim themselves as sacred. That's how I feel when I work with it. Helping women to claim that we are the guardians of life, the sacred caregivers of life, along with our brothers by our side. But we have this innate wisdom which comes from our wombs, our inner world of how to care for all of life. So we have these amazing speakers on, and meditations and journeys. It's really beautiful. It really supports you in going out there with your work, because there's no separation between us women that want to work to help the earth. Like it all comes from the same place, from our hearts and our wombs. They're so connected. You know, our wombs and our yonis are so connected to our hearts. It's like we can birth anything from that place if our hearts are healed and connected to a global sisterhood. It's amazing, it really is. It's so inspiring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can feel it. Sounds like a really incredible organization, and what an interesting way for it to be catalyzed into being birthed into being when she crashed her car into a tree.
Yeah.
And how
And she talks about it on YouTube, and she downloaded the whole charity.
it's amazing.
She's done it.
It's amazing. I really like what you were saying about the belt around the center of Gaia, and that, what did you say, that was like responsible for the cool temperature control?
It's a cooling belt of Gaia. It keeps the temperate conditions in balance. You know, without it, the whole Earth's gonna become out of balance and turn to desert. You know, it's really because the trees, the rainforest brings the rain. You know, it's like that rainforest is so important for creating the conditions so that rain can come, so that water can come to the earth. You know, I mean, all forest does that, but if that disappears, it's tragic, absolutely tragic. You know,
Yeah.
biodiversity, all of it. You know, they talk a lot about the forest floor, and it's like when we cut down the forest, that forest floor, you cannot replace that ever. It's got such a richness. Especially if that forest has been there for hundreds, thousands years, there's so many microbes and bacteria in that soil that is what life thrives from, where we come from. And like we're destroying it, we're turning it to desert for beef, for soya, we're taking away like massive amounts of different species of hummingbirds, monkey, you know, all of that biodiversity. I know. And so then when you tap into the tree sisters, I know there's brothers that feel the destruction of the earth, but like what I love about Claire Dubois and some of the other women, Pollyanna Darling, is like, we can't stop crying when you make the videos, you know, because it's like we feel it in our feminine bodies that is rape. That is pillage. It's like the destruction of the foundation of life. Without that forest floor, there is no life, you know, and for profit and greed and, you know, food that's so distorted, that is going, it's disappearing. The food isn't even good to eat. It doesn't feed it's not good for you. You know,
I
so
know.
it's pointless destruction. So our wounds will be fucking feeling that so intensely. Sorry, my language, but it's like the pain that we have in our wounds as women. I think it's a lot of this is the external world disappearing. You know, the
Wow.
rape of the hand is in our womb, whether we've been physically raped ourselves or not.
Yeah.
That pain, endometriosis is on the increase as the forests and the land is being traumatized. You know, it's linked. You know,
Yeah.
it's so.
That's a really, really good and very important perspective to shed light on and bring to as many people as possible, myself included. Thank you for sharing about that. I remember, again, during the beginning of my initial awakening, discovering the art of raw food, which just blew my mind. And I'm reading this book that was mostly educational with recipes. And I remember reading what is actually required from the earth to create topsoil and how long it takes for the planet to produce topsoil, which is an astounding amount of time, and how quickly humans are destroying it just was like appalling. And I remember that being a really challenging piece of information for me to even digest, because it's like you can't replace that.
No.
And humans don't realize our connection with the planet and the way that the earth even functions, and how huge our impact is on it. And I'm just really fascinated with learning more about the way that Gaia really works, because I wasn't raised with any of this wisdom, like most of us weren't. Nobody's really taught how to be in right relationship with the planet, or how she functions as an entity herself. And that's been something that it has just been naturally, intuitively, like reconnecting for me as I offer my back to the earth and dance through the forest and trees, and speak to Gaia in my prayers, and let her know that I'm here listening to her, supporting her. But I still have very little understanding of how she works as a whole. Like that piece that you were talking about, the function of the belt of the tropics around her, like that is huge to me. And I know there's so much wisdom like that, like how Gaia actually functions and works, and the way that her different ecosystems dance and intermingle to allow her body as a whole to thrive and support all life on it, not just humans. But that type of wisdom is so important and powerful, and that is like some of the most potent medicine I feel like that could be delivered to humanity right now, is to learn how she works and how we affect her in our behavior on her surface.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, well, we are so perfectly designed as women, and so is she, and so is the masculine as well. So like what you were saying is like once we start healing ourselves as women, then we start to understand her. I think the outer world and the inner world aren't separate, especially for us women, and I really, really feel that. And the more you heal this feminine body and claim it as sacred and listen to it and feel it, the more you will understand the design that she's put in place. Like, the knowledge that when the trees, the forests have gone, like the leaves that fall off the trees, the iron from the leaves gets washed into the rivers and it makes its way to the sea, and then the kelp forest can grow because they're fed off that iron. And so then you get otters and sea life. So without the kelp forests, which are dying because there's no iron because the forests have gone, that's how delicately imbalanced she is. And I feel the same within our bodies, like our hearts. If there's wounding in our hearts and pain in our hearts, we get pain in our womb. We get pain in that place of creation because we're sick in our hearts or sick in our minds. And then that affects the place where we give life. So it's like we're perfectly designed, and so is she perfectly designed. So we really need to do our healing work to be able to be there for her. It's no good trying to put bandages or stick plasters on her. We have to do it for ourselves, and especially for us women. It is the time of the women, because once you heal this ecosystem of the feminine and get it back into right relationship, you will just know what to do. It's like, okay, I'm speaking for her. It's like I've always listened to the elders of the indigenous people, the elder grandmothers speaking, and I've always cried my eyes out because they speak from the earth. They speak with a power, don't they? That's really, it's so simple what they say, but it's said with such depth because they're so connected to the land, and that we can't even imagine in the West the depth of our sacredness, the depth of our being as women. We're only touching the surface. Like we are the creatrixes. We're the creators of life. Like we have to really honor that and claim it now to be able to, you know, the rest of the solutions are just sticking plasters on the problem. It's like it's the time of the women. I can feel it really strongly, like just your summit. It's like we're piecing it together, so work with it on the land as well. Perfect symbiosis of a healed woman on the land, working with the land, with all of our relations. Like every species on this earth is part of the perfect design, isn't it? You know, and we need to acknowledge all of our relations.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Oh man, that is the stuff that just speaks to my soul so strongly. And I can totally relate to the fact that we're just barely touching the tip of the iceberg right now. It's really incredible just to even ponder how deeply humanity as a collective leap, like we can't even comprehend what it's going to be like to live on the planet as a truly awakened species and really know who we are in our truth and our purpose on this planet and how to be in right relationship with her and be a steward for the land. It's just, and it just is incredible to think that we're just barely beginning to open our eyes, and there is a whole new world paradigm and dimension, and to just like take a moment and like dream of the planet like in full health and alignment and everyone taking care of her and like doing what we're really meant to do is like help her be even more beautiful, really.
Yeah.
Be creative with our energy and sculpt the landscape in communion with what she wants. And I just see this like this glowing gem of a planet that is just a miraculous, beautiful, living piece of art, and we are taking up our right purpose and remembering how to be what a human being is truly meant to be.
Yeah.
Organic and in tune with ourselves and with the planet. And I just want to say thank you for what you just shared, because that was an empowering message after touching on how devastatingly destructive our asleepness has been to the planet, to talk about how it's deeply interconnected with our relationship with our own bodies and healing ourselves, and how that reflects in the outer world. That's really how to do it, is to go inward and come back to yourself and heal your relationship with your body and your own truth. And I just really appreciate that.
And one of the simplest ways is for women just to get in tune with their cycles, to allow themselves that rhythm, even if it's just, say you can't rest for the whole of the bleed, just give yourself an hour or two of bringing in that archetype of the winter and the crone, where you really need to honor that for an hour or two. And slowly you will build up this power of like what we're really about. And it's one of the simpler, that's what we've got, the gift of the pathway back home, because it's within us, you know. And like you said, the dreaming at that time, dreaming the new earth with her, that's our responsibility, you know. And working with your cycle brings in the maturity that you need, because every stage is a rite of passage. You have to let go of who you've just been for that week and move on into the next part of your cycle. And there's more I could say on that, that rites of passage of a woman in her life, because these archetypes are within that. It's like the more we can transform, let go and transform, the more mature we become, and the more we've got to be able to speak up. Because what we've got is like, we have been persecuted as women, and you know, we've all been asleep, but there has been a lot, and there still is a lot of damage to the actual feminine. So we have to remember that and be gentle with ourselves. And one of the easiest way for me is claiming up the seasons and the archetypes of the cycle every month. You know, you can just do it quietly for yourself to begin with and start building your power from that place.
Mm, yeah, it's a really beautiful journey. And I have been like the more I have been really coming home to my own cycle and working with it and healing through it and observing the history of our planet and our species and where we're at right now with everything, the more I just am tuned into just how freaking important and powerful the menstrual cycle is, because that is something that could not ever be destroyed or taken away or infiltrated or manipulated. There's like, that is pure. You like, that cannot ever be messed with. And I know that is one of the reasons why I'm called to work. You're called to this work. Why there's like so that are waking up to this right now, because it is, like you said, that pathway home and to our truth and our purpose. And I just like, can you imagine like women all over the world really honoring their cycles and and
Yeah.
absorbing this information and feeling the liberation in their bodies and experiencing healing that comes from just receiving this type of information and knowing that there's something really powerful happening within you every month, and just beginning to focus your awareness on it, like that's all it takes to start the journey, and then it doesn't stop.
Mm.
Just turn your focus to it, and then you're there for the ride, for the journey, for creations. And it's really beautiful to be aware of the fact that each menstrual cycle is an initiation, and what you're going through, and the need to really surrender and let go, and know that what you're doing is releasing old energy and identities and parts of yourself, and like you're simultaneously grieving a death while birthing a
Mm.
new energy and identity like yourself. It's just, I can't even put words on like how amazing it is to like be in that space of death and birth at the same time. It's like, I know the eye of the storm isn't the right uh words that I'm thinking of, but just that like still centered point, that's the void basically, right?
Yeah.
That's where all of the dreaming happens for creation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's the golden moment where you're not who you were and you're not who you're becoming. You just are. You're in present moment. And from that place, anything is infinite and possible. And you're with your soul. It's powerful work. There's so many layers to it. It's phenomenal.
It is.
Really. I'm so thankful to be part of the remembering, really.
Me too. It is such a blessing. And yeah, I just feel it growing stronger. And I am just so grateful for the audience that tunes into this to receive the medicine that's in this session and all of them, because I know it is divinely guided, and it's going to be delivered to everybody who it needs to be delivered to. And what an exciting time to be on the front lines of remembering, like you said, and sharing this, and just opening our hearts up, and reaching out to our sisters around the planet, lifting them up, and
Yeah,
coming
and reaching
home.
out to our daughters, it's one of the most important things we can do. The collective daughters, we need to change the culture so that they know this from a young age. It's like, I mean, older girls are being taught this, but I feel like from age 8, when their hormones kick in and they start feeling the call of the woman becoming, that's when women can assist them with their path to womanhood. Because we can give them the teachings from that place. And if you get them outside in the forest, or out on the land at the same time, and that help them to feel that deep connection of life, the sacredness of life. You know, they just feel it anyway, but through stories, songs, women holding presents around the fire. They love hearing women's stories and then getting them to see that when they start bleeding, it's in this rhythm that's already all around them in nature. What a beautiful gift, you know, like to understand that from the beginning so they can see what is happening with the culture and help being naturally without having to be anyone. They just naturally are helping the evolution of humankind into becoming more awakened because they already know that how connected they are. It's separation that causes all the problems, isn't it? You know. So
Definitely.
and for their maturity, like knowing my cycle, knowing autumn woman from my cycle is now helping me with my menopause rite of passage because I know her, because I've had her in my cycle for however many years now with her fierceness. I can, it's easier for me to let her in and to, like when she's there, like she's fierce, you know, she's like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And it's like, thank God the culture sees that. I mean, they try to repress it because they're fearful of it. But now we know, like, I feel like in the West now, it's setting a precedence for the amount of menopausal women since the witch burning times that are waking up and that they've woken in their cycles and now they're going into their menopause. Like, when has that happened in the West before? Like, there's so many of my sisters the same age as me and a bit older that are really claiming the power of the menopause because we've been awakened in our cycle for so many years.
Mm,
Phenomenal. There's going to be no stopping us, you know, like, because we're being
totally.
born. Like,
There is no stopping it. It's time.
yeah.
And we are just so freaking blessed to be alive on the planet right now. I'm so grateful that I chose to be a woman this time around.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
I want to say hi to everybody as you keep coming around. He's my baby. Gosh, I wish I could talk to you forever about all of this. It's just feels so good. It just like speaks to a place inside of me. Like I can feel like my heart just like blossoming, receiving so much of this and just being in this space. And it feels very much like remembering, and like I can feel the ancestors here celebrating this moment with us and being so grateful that we are here doing this and helping to heal the lineage. Oh, that's not your and yeah, just
Can
what
I
a really
say one more thing about the cycle? I've just remembered because we have
absolutely.
a collective grief process going on of understanding what we've been doing to our land and culture, to Mother Earth, and to what's been happening and how destructive it's been. If you're aware of your cycle, that grief comes with the Crohn, with the bleeding, doesn't it? So the
Yeah,
more you allow that, the more you get to know grief really well. So then you can not shy away from it. You know, you can start, you know, really working with grief because it's in the grief that there's the deep wisdom. I just feel like that's really important to say. It's like our culture desensitized us to grief and to our cycles, and that's like it's gold for this time now of like it's okay to be in deep grief and that you will come through it and be reborn with these with deeper wisdom, you know. It's like it's so important.
definitely. Yes, thank you for adding that. Yeah, I read a book years ago that was written by a man, and so I usually I don't really appreciate it when a man says something about the female cycle. In my opinion, they have no place to talk about it unless they have been with an awakened woman and kind of understand it. But it was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle or Tolle. I'm not sure how you say his last name, but there was a part in it that really stood out for me, that when he was talking about what is really happening for a woman when she bleeds is she is connected to the collective female pain body, and and that just made so much sense to me, because I know it's really common for women to get really emotional and sad and upset and have no idea why they're feeling like that around this time and when their hormones are in flux, and to think that we are open and feeling and connected to the collective female pain body of, you know, all of the suffering that women have experienced for the whole time that we have been on this planet, and include Mother Earth. It helps you really understand what's going on with you. And for me personally, I'm finishing up a cycle last week, and I've been healing my cycle for years and have been enjoying them as really beautiful, blissful experiences where I just feel like I'm just like right there with God and Gaia. And this one was actually painful for me when it started. My womb felt just angry and upset, and I just woke up so distraught and just really upset for no reason. And I just cried and just allowed my body to feel angry and upset, and I knew that it was, you know, part of that collective female pain body. And also I've just been kind of like expecting to be a channel of different energies and emotional releases, because I personally have viewed that, like, the more women that wake up and really start honoring their cycles in a more conscious way, we're kind of acting as channels for this suppressed energy and emotions to be released from, like, through us and from the planet and from the collective of ancestors. And I feel like that's really happening a lot right now with women, is we're all being called to be channels for this energy to release through and heal ourselves and our lineage and help the planet become lighter energetically. So
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Yes, I knew you would be able to receive that completely. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking we should probably wrap it up, because I stay here with you all day long and talk, but probably that would be a little bit too big a video file for me to download for everyone. So before we go, I want to talk about what is I'm sorry, I can't remember. It's the mandala that you create. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I wanted to get across to the girls. It was kind of for my own daughters, about the seasons and the archetypes. And I came up with this wheel, so you can move it. You can move. You can't really see it, but you can move each front wheel to a different archetype. There's a picture of the maiden here, and she's coming out to the rising sun, and she's saying her prayers for the morning, just honoring the new energies of the day. And she's got a womb tree here with little buds of her womb on there. And each archetype has got totems in it, because I'm Shamanka. So we've got the swan here that represents the gracefulness and the innocence of the maiden. And she's got a little lamb here, which represents her, just to remind her of her, that she's got energy and she's emerging, but she's still quite innocent. So not to, you know, the biggest thing we can do, sometimes we do, is we come out of the bleeding and we're like, right, action, you know, we want to take it out there. And sometimes it's best to hold it, to hold the vision that you've just experienced, to really put it into action when you can embody it properly as a mother, not as the maiden who hasn't got everything she needs, hasn't got all the wisdom yet. You can end up giving your power away. That's how I feel. So it's like I put those totems in just Like she's strong. She's standing doing the tree pose, because she's strong in her medicine because she let herself dream, but she's still innocent. She's still just awakening. And then I've got some words of wisdom in between each one, and then it moves to the mother, and she's got, like there's full life force around her, wildflowers, herbs growing, she's cooking, she's painting, she's teaching the next generation. Heron is flying over, which represents the intuition of a woman, deep knowing of a woman. That's what heron represents to me. And just her in her fullness of life. So I did this so that I just put it on my sort of side for the girls to see who I was embodying, and for my son, at each cycle, and my partner, actually. So there's the red tent here, and in the smoke is each archetype, and you can move the wheel, and it's got the days of the week and the moons as well. So the girl can see and be reminded about or the woman, what archetype she is, and the medicine that comes with that, with the different totems and the tree. Each one's got a tree, so the seasons are in there as well. I did that, and then it's become a colouring book, which is going to have new stories put in it, because I want to link in the medicine wheel to the story as well, because it's really important. Like Shamanka, she works with the medicine wheel, and like this wheel of the cycle is in the medicine wheel. It's in the sacred hoop of life. It's in the circle of life, especially for the feminine. So I'm going to put more of that in the colouring book. But there's a colouring book with these archetypes in, and some stories that I share with the girls during circle, so they get to see, to understand. And it needed to be visual, so we don't bombard them with our own words. It's just like be opening them up to that understanding and how beautiful it is.
Definitely. I feel like we learn much better through imagery and storytelling. Storytelling, like that's truly how humans are meant to learn, not this weird sit at a desk in front of a freaking chalk.
Yeah, totally. That's how I feel. Storyteller a lot. I feel like the best way to get wisdom across is through myths and stories. It's really important. It speaks to the soul, just like the archetypes do. Stories and myths do as well. We need to go beyond the mind into the internal depths of the soul, the richness of the soul.
Definitely. Yeah. That was such a beautiful creation. Thank you so much for sharing that with everyone. Was there a discount you were going to be offering the iTunes
on my Facebook page, or you can email me. I haven't done it yet, but I'll put a post about the discounts through the summit.
Beautiful.
Or email me if you're not on Facebook. And I need to get more colouring books printed, so I'm just going to have to see if the printers is open, because I've sold them all, but I've got mandalas as well. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for offering that to the listeners that tune in. I think of several women who have young daughters who are just gonna love that, and thank you so much for creating that. It's what a gift.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, is there anything else that you feel we need to
Changing Woman Mandala is because one of the biggest things that I feel our culture doesn't allow women, never mind the cycle, but with our lives being in these rites of passage, like the menopausal woman or pubescent girl, we change so much. I don't know what the cycle of the masculine is, but we don't stay the same. We're not meant to stay the same, and our culture and our partners and our family want us to stay the same, and we can't, because we're changing women. Like, it's really important for the girls to understand that if they're raging and angry because their outer world of their family and relationships isn't allowing them to, the internal change that they're feeling with their rites of passage of becoming a woman, or becoming a mother, or becoming a menopausal woman, or becoming an elder, it's like if those conditions around you aren't allowing it, we can get really angry, we can get rage, or we can turn it in on ourselves and get sick. So I really wanted us to claim that we're changing woman and how beautiful that is, you know. It's like, it's phenomenal. It's what life's about. It's about evolution and evolving, and you know, it's the depth of our maturity. It's so important, you know. So that's why I called it that, changing woman, my darling.
It so is important. I just like think that it speaks to the pure resilience of the human being to have been able to survive this long without this knowledge and being just like, that alone is a miracle that we have even been able to survive. And it's time to remember. Okay, Hannah. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful conversation and transmission. Thank you so much for being here with me and sharing your beautiful wisdom, heart with me and the world. And it's been really,
Thanks for inviting me, and I can't wait to watch the summit. Is it the end of May? Is that what you said? Yeah. May. Yeah, really looking forward to it, and thank you for putting yourself out there to hold the container for to speak from that place. And I'll watch it with my daughters.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. Well, then I will be in touch, and you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
Good day. Bye.
Aloha.